And so we're talking about smart data capture. So going from like a spreadsheet and instead working with AppSheet to actually capture the data and the contents that we want there. But yeah, looks like we've got some people here and excited for today's lesson. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get started. And as y'all see the content kind of coming up, we'll get into some of those questions and everything. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. All right, well, welcome back. And like I said, feel free to leave your questions about today's content in the chat box. As they come up, I'll be answering those as we go along. So first and foremost, wanted to do a little bit of a recap of what we did yesterday so y'all kind of understand where we're coming from. And it starts off with our framework, right? So yesterday we talked about the citizen development framework, and we're looking at an expense tracker app. And this is specifically for businesses. And what we have done is kind of outlined, okay, if I'm a citizen developer working within a company and I have a team that all have their different workflows, how can we decide which workflows we need to turn into NoCode apps or AppSheet apps or different business automations? So first step, discover. So after we did the discovery, we decided expense tracker is going to be the right one for this business. And so we went ahead and started organizing the data, right? So that's step 2. And then step 3, we're going to design it, meaning we're going to customize an app sheet. And then we're going to iterate as our business process may change, or we see different things. Maybe we learn something new and we're like, oh, I need to add that to my app, and just update the app over time. And then really after that is just deploy and then repeat. So we got a new business process. We have this new framework or this new workflow that we're all working on. And we feel like we need to move that into a no-code app. And so that's what this framework is helpful for, just kind of troubleshooting which apps to get started on and which ones maybe to hold off on as they're not high priority. But as you start like building these apps for your different business workflows, it gets really quick. And so this is just a good structure to kind of keep in the back of your head to help you kind of skip a couple of the steps of not having to like think about just which apps and which business processes to work on. So hopefully that's helpful for you guys there. And then I've got some new steps today that I wanted to talk to y'all about for just how I think about setting up my forms. So I'll talk us through those, and then we'll get straight into the building of the form views. All right. So for form setups steps, we're going to define the data and the table. So we've already done that. And then we're going to customize the form fields. And then there's a couple optional steps here with we're going to set validations, add behavior. I'll show you a few examples of that, and then we'll save and test the form. And so this is really going to be how we structure and organize our workflow as we're going to be diving in to the actual form setup here. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, let's hop into our AppSheet app. Okay, again, just another brief overview of the app and what we built yesterday. So over here on the right, we have our emulator view, right? So I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so I can see some of my controls here. And so we can see who is signed in. And let me update this. As y'all know, our old business name was that. And so that's why you see that at the bottom there. So I'll update that to the new business name, QREW. And then we are on the project view. So if you're new to AppSheet, you have some hyperlinks down here that are super helpful. So you can click on the project view to see like the actual the actual view here, or you can click on the table to go to the project table. And so this one, we can just simply add projects over here and allocate a budget to those projects. Okay. So that one's pretty straightforward. And then where we left off yesterday is we had the expense tracker over here. So we have a list of all of our expenses, the amounts for each of those. And so now today we're going to take a look at updating the form view. So it's more user-friendly and it's updating data a little bit better for us. Okay, so those are kind of the two main views. The rest of the tables are here just as reference tables. So if you missed yesterday's, go ahead and watch that one, and that will be helpful in kind of getting you up to speed on how the app works, why we structured the data the way we did, and you'll be up to speed to be able to keep up with this live stream. Okay, so we're right here on the expense table, and what we're going to be doing on this one is making sure all of our columns are correct first, which I think I noticed the amount table does have it. I forgot to put it in accounting view. And so now we have our data looks really good there. And so let's start updating the form. Okay, so really the main thing that we need to do today is going to be to sum up our amounts so we can see kind of them related back to our project table. Okay, and so we can see related expenses here, and we can have an aggregated cost that subtracts out of the allotted budget. So I come over here to the project table, and I'm going to add a virtual column here that's going to show me, I guess, the amount remaining in our spend. So remaining spend is what we'll call this column. And all we need to do for this one is we're going to need to have our budget allotment. Let's see if it did not get that one. So the budget allotment is maybe what the admin would set as this is how much you have allotted for your project. And then we're going to subtract that from the sum of the related expenses. Okay. And we'll wait for our green check mark. Sum function requires a list of numerical inputs. Okay. So you can actually use these to show a list right there. Okay. I don't think it likes that I'm subtracting here. Let me try one more thing here. And if that doesn't work, we will, okay. Have to troubleshoot some different methods here. Okay, so sum of the related expenses. Okay. Sum requires a list of numerical inputs. Okay, I see. So I need to go into the expense table, and then I'm going to get the amount. So this is an enum list dereference right here. So now we have the list. The list, it can actually calculate the amount. It was calculating the IDs, and it was saying, no, there's no IDs there. So we got that one resolved, and now let's go ahead and add back our budget column. Okay, so we're going to sum the related expenses against the budget allotment. All right, so now that we have that one there, we should be good for the project table and being able to visualize the allotted budget. And one UX design that I'm going to update here is I'm going to switch the projects to be on on this side, and then the expense tracker to be on that side. So projects is going to be first, and expense tracker will be next. Just so that way when users are using this app, they can see like, okay, first I'm going to be on the project table, and then I'm going to go over to the expense tracker to view all these expenses. Alternatively, you can click into a project and you'll be able to see, here's my budget allotment, and then here's my related expenses to this project. And now that we have the virtual column here, remaining spend, we have that spun up. We can go to the project detail, and it should be getting all of our extra columns there. So I can go ahead and save that. And that should roll up our related expenses for us. It'll put it down here. Okay, so we want it to be up here, and we can see, looks like we've spent $65, if my math is correct. So then another column we might want to have is just the total spend. And so we can do that similarly with the same type of expression here. And so I'll do another column. So total spend, or total expenses rather, is probably a better name for this virtual column. And we're going to do the same formula. So sum related expenses and amount. Okay, so we can tap into the expenses table with the related field, which is a ref rows expression that's automatically created when you have the references. And we got the amount table there, or the amount column rather. Okay, so save that one. And now we have total expenses and remaining spend. Perfect. So I'll go ahead and save that one. And then I'm going to come over to my project detail view, and I'm going to organize the column, this view, a little bit better. So I actually like the card layout view. I think it cleans up the form a lot, or the detail view. And so I also just like to keep it pretty clean up at the top. There's not really any necessary action buttons that we're working with right now. So I'll just clear these out as well. Okay, so project A is for the sales department, and they have a budget allotment of 500, and then we have the date time created. I sometimes like to put these at the bottom, which we'll go ahead and do that now. So if you want to rearrange your column structure, the way you do that is going to views and then column order, and then we'll click through all of these here. All right, and once we have this, we can go ahead and put related expenses up there, and remaining spend, I like to put that right there, and then total expenses can be right before that. Okay, so now that we've got that situated, we can see how much budget we have allotted, how much we've spent already, so total expenses, and then our remaining spend at the bottom. Okay, so depending on who you are, maybe you're the admin, you might be looking at this number more. If you're the employee, you're looking at this one. I've spent about $65 so far on this project. My total allotment was 500. And so this can be a super helpful tool if you're trying to organize that part of the business process and that part of the puzzle. But what we were here to do is update our form view. And this is going to be the expense tracker form, right? So we want to make it a very seamless process to add expenses here. And so there's quite a bit of data that needs to be captured that can be cleaned up a lot better. Okay, so what we need to do is first head back over to the expense table. And from here, we're going to start using either some formulas or initial values based on where we're coming from. And so most of the time, people are going to be adding data from the project table, not necessarily from the expense table. The expense table, we might need to take out that add button at the bottom so that people only are adding expenses from the project level, and then the expense table is just to view a list of those expenses. But we'll see how the UX design turns out for us there. Okay, so if I'm at the project level, then I should be able to find the category that's associated with this project. And so what I can do is have an initial value, and I'll just go ahead and add the project ID, because that's where I'll be starting from. Dot, it would be the category ID, which I do not have that for this view. So let me back up a second, make sure I'm understanding where I'm at on this form. So actually, the first thing that we should do, this is pretty straightforward, is we don't need to show the date times here. And so I'll go ahead and adjust those. So context view type does not equal form. And again, if y'all have any questions or ideas for this expense tracker app that you're hoping to get answered today, feel free to throw those in the chat, as I'll be able to answer those questions for you guys. Okay, so save that one. And then same for the created by. We're going to go ahead and put that one to not show during our when we're adding an entry to the expense table. So context view type does not equal form. Okay, so those both should be good. And then if we want to add more receipts, we can do so there. We may want to clean this description up. That's a little bit too much. So what we can do here is we can click on the edit pencil, go to description, and view this message here. And we just want to put, I'm just going to put add new receipt. And that should be good. And we always recommend putting a single quote or a double quote just to make sure that AppSheet recognizes that this is text and not an expression or anything there. Okay, so you can see that it already fixed that one up for us just a little bit. The next thing that we want to do is add some show columns so that we can have different pagination for the form to kind of break it up into separate categories. So the way we do that is you can actually create a show column just using virtual columns, which is super helpful. So we'll just do header 1, and I'll go ahead and make this one. And so, sorry, let me back up. So for the app formula, you just put a blank space. And so that helps us be able to have the header without having to create it in the Google Sheet. But you still need to have like an app formula for a virtual column. And so that's why we put the space there. And so we're going to make this a type show. And then for the category, it's going to be a page header. And then for this one, we're going to call it overview. All right. And so we'll save that one. And that should be good for that part. And so that should cover project ID all the way to description. And then from, I guess we can do from vendor to payment method to amount, we can do, I was going to do expense details. And so I'll go ahead and create the next one there. And we could also call it header 2. But for this one, again, we're putting in the app formula, the blank space there, and we can save that. And then the display name is going to go in here again. So I copied that expense details right there for us, highlighted it, and put the single quotations right there. All right, so now we got that one. And now it's back over to our form view. And I'm going to add all the columns so I can organize them correctly. Okay, so getting all the columns added again here. And then now our headers are popping up. And so actually, I think I want to change this header name to what we called it, which was overview. It'll just help us be on the same page there. And so you do have to change it in AppSheet to back to what you like renamed it. I guess one feature request that I would like to see in AppSheet is that get adjusted. So that way, if you change the column name, it like knows that over here too. Might have something to do with keys. I'm not a traditional programmer, so I'm just going based off of how AppSheet works. But that would be a sweet feature to add if it could just automatically update your column views based on the column order over there. Because I think it also affects, let's say you change either your SQL instance or your Google Sheet column name, it's not going to update over here if you've got all of these column orders set. Might be a little bit more complicated than I'm thinking it is, but would be a really cool feature. Okay, so what we have to do to get these this form organized correctly is I'm going to put the overview at the top. And so there we go for the overview, and our expense details, we're going to put it right here above vendor ID. And so looks like we forgot to label this a show column. So I can come back over here, and our expense details should be a type show. And let's see, we need to make it a page header. And I see, I put that in the display name because I remember putting it there, but I put it in the display name. All right. And so we got our expense details there. Okay, gonna go ahead and save that one. And now we have our overview, and then we can see the next one. Okay, gonna go ahead and save that. So now that we have that situated, we should be able to see our expense tracker and add a new one. And now we can see the overview. If we click next, we have the expense details. So who did we buy it from? What payment method is it? And the next part is let's clean up these IDs because those are even confusing me a little bit. I keep wanting to say project management, which I did yesterday. And then people don't want to see that ID. That's just for the developer who's building the app. So let's change the display name for these. And we're going to change that display name to payment method. So really right now, the name of the game is just updating the form views. So that way they make sense to the end user. Payment method, got to focus on spelling. Another cool feature, I'm not very good at spelling, but it would be great if AppSheet had a spell checker feature on your display name, which I have no idea how that would work, but that would be great. And then we have the vendor, so we can save that. and then let's back up to the previous spot. So we need the project and the category. So again, clicking the edit pencil and then just coming in here and updating this to the project column type or column name. And this one is going to be category. So that way it's helpful for the end user. They don't see ID and wonder why am I looking at ID? They're seeing what the column is to be actually filled out as. So that's just a nice and easy way to clean up that form. So we got overview, project, category, and a description of the expense right there. And then over here, expense details, tell us what vendor it was, tell us your payment method that you used, how much it was, and then add your receipt right there. Okay, so now that the form is cleaned up, let's make some more automation there, or rather auto-filling features, right? And I think the first thing that I want to do is actually make these headers, not page headers. I believe it's going to be a section header, or no, I think it is page headers. I need to go over here to the form, and I want to use tabs. I like the tab better. Let me know what y'all think in the chat. I just like the ability to select up here at the top. The next feature, I'm used to just having the save down there, so I always like to just click here and here, or even just have the ability to go back and forth. But sometimes you don't want your end user being able to go back and forth between the sections. So maybe the simple page style or the automatic page style would be a better fit for that one. Okay, so let's back up here to the project view. And I clicked on project A, and let's go ahead and add another expense here. So we've got the auto population of project A, and that just comes standard as we add a project or add an expense from a specific project, right? And so then we have to select a category. So what would be nice here is if when we select a project, the category is automatically populated. So we're going to have to go back to the data to orient that. And we'll take a look at how that would work. But we'll go ahead and do that. And then description will be here's the item that I bought, right? Or it could be a direct copy from the category with some extra details. And then the vendor as well. This would be nice if a vendor had an association with the project. And so we would need to add the category and the vendor to the project level. So that's super easy to set up as well. And then the payment method, we can have it default. And so that's a good example to have it default to a specific type of payment method, and then amount will vary, so we'll leave it blank as it is. And for the amount, or sorry, I want to go to the expense table, and I want to view the PM ID. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and hop over to my sheet. I was thinking that was an enum. And so let's go ahead and navigate back to our Google Sheet here. And so for the payment methods, we have cash, credit card, or debit card. So I'm actually going to have it default to the credit. Well, I don't know. We'll just say it'll default to the debit card. That way it's going to the bank. And so the way we do that is we'll come back over to AppSheet, and over here, we'll have the default payment method is going to head into, I believe we can just, we're just going to reference this table, and we're going to select the payment method, or sorry, thinking out loud here on how I want this structured. I guess the easiest way to do it is, since it's just an initial value, we're going to just go ahead and hard code it, for lack of a better word, to the debit card value. And so I'm just going to grab this value here and paste that one in there, since that is the reference that it's looking for. So I can go ahead and add that like so. And so that's just taking the foreign key, and it's going to have that as an initial value there. So let's just take a look at that so you can see what I'm talking about there. So we go to expense details, and then we can see it defaults to the debit card. But if somebody needs to change it, you can select cash, credit card, or debit card, which is the default value. All right. Alternatively, we could also make another column on here, and we can say, we can call this column type, and we can just say, so the purpose of this column is just to define which one is the default. Default. And so we'll say that this one's the default. And I guess we'll call these other. And so if we come back over to AppSheet, now I'm kind of testing this one out on the fly, so we'll see if this one works, but I think this would be a better alternative than hard coding it. So you can think of the first example I showed as beginner. This may be intermediate. So let's see if this database method works here. And that was on the payment method table. And so I'm going to regenerate that structure there. And we'll see if we can have that as the default payment method using an expression rather than just hard coding it in there. So for the initial value, I want this column to select from the payment method table. I want to select all of them from the list, but the type needs to be equal to default. So let's see if that selects the proper one. Expression is valid, but the result type is a list, and it is looking for a base type ref. Okay. So it is defaulting to the correct one here. And so what we can do then is we can write an if statement, I believe, and we'll do if payment method is not blank. Let's see. Is it payment? There we go. And I'm going to select this one here. And is not blank. And then put my comma in there. Then we need it to show the default one there. And I'm trying to think. Okay, so the main issue is we've got the select statement correct, but it's generating a type list rather than a ref. Let me see if I can wrap this actually in a text expression, and it solves that issue. There we go. Okay, so it's only ever going to default to one. in this situation. And so that should get us the ID that we're looking for this initial value. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And I think we could also put in any select in there. Okay, great. So there we go. So we could have another view in here, right? That is in the hamburger menu for admin. So we can come over here to the view section, menu, create a new view, and this is going to be for the payment method. And we want to have like a payment. We'll just call it payment method. That's pretty straightforward there in the menu over here. And we'll need to adjust the icon. And so for payment method, maybe we just do like the bank. And so we'll make that the icon there. And then the type of view, I think deck view will be good for now. And then we can set the different headers here. So payment method is good. And then we want the type showing there. And actually, we can just default these to none. And we don't need an action bar, but it would be nice to group these by their type. So you can see the default is the debit card, and then the other types of payment are cash or credit card. And then that way users can add more, or they can come in here and edit which one is the default. And primarily this would be for admin, right? So if we go back over here, it looks like I'm showing the ID column, which end users don't need to see that. And yeah, I think that looks pretty good there. And I don't really think end users would need to see the related expenses here. They just need to be able to set the values right here. So that way they can come to payment methods, and the admin can go ahead and select, okay, I actually want the credit card to be the default payment method. And so they could just come in here, click the edit pencil, and we should probably make that a type enum. And yeah, it would be other or default. You can also make an action button for that. So as you can see, the idea is just kind of keep going and going and going for these types of things. So let's set this one to default. We'll click save. And then now we have 2 as a default. So we need to make this one type other. And so it would actually probably be better to make that an action button. So you never have 2 as a default, as that would mess up the other formula. So these are the types of things where you can see like, okay, that framework for iteration, this is where the iteration comes, right? You start troubleshooting and seeing, okay, if this is interacting this way, then I'm going to have to come back and think this process through a little bit differently. All right, so back to the main thing, which was our expense tracker over here and setting up these forms and the expense details. Okay, so we got the payment method set up with our, let me go to the table, with our initial value over here. And I use the text expression. You can also do, I think we can do the any select, because any defaults to 1 value. Yeah, so 1 randomly chosen value from the list. This is probably the preferred one. The people at our office, they usually use any select when they're doing this type of interaction. It says randomly. There's only 1, so there's no randomness to it, right? Because I'm saying it needs to default to that one that's saying it's default. And so it selects the default one. Okay, so we got the any select there. All right, so then the next step is we need to set up who the vendor is. So we could use the same method of saying, here's the default vendor for sales, here's the default vendor for this one. I think I want to take a different route for this one and actually do it based on the type of project that we have going on. And so if we come over here, we can add some more columns to the project level. And so we can see this is for sales, this is for marketing, this is for operations. And so we could add a category type. And it's going to be category ID. And then we can also have a vendor ID at the project level. And payment method we already have as default. And so those should be the only ones that we need. And from there, we're going to select the category that it's associated with. And I'll actually show you all that on AppSheet. So yeah, that's all we needed to do there is add those two columns. Is the category ID and the vendor ID right there. And once we do that, we can come back to our project table this time. And we're going to have those two columns regenerated. So that way we can have the ability to select, okay, this project is for this category and for this vendor. All right, so make these references again to the category table and to the vendor table. And so I'll go ahead and add those there. And then our display name, again, we want to make sure that we're having, we don't need to show the ID. We just need to show the vendor there. So add vendor right there. And same thing for category is we'll update the display name so that it's just showing category. All right. Save that one. Perfect. Okay, so now that we have that set up, we can come back over to our project and we should be showing these columns already. But actually, I think we need to add them because we put the column order here. So let me go ahead and add the category ID. And that's going to go, I believe, yep, right above the department ID and then vendor, or rather just department, and then the vendor. And then for this demonstration, we can go ahead and add those as quick edit columns. And so vendor ID and category ID, we'll be able to set those from the detail view rather than having to edit that form. All right. So, okay. So now that we have that situated, we can go ahead and say, okay, this is for category. So that one, actually, we might not need that one, but for sales, forget which one we associated with sales. So it looks like we have office supplies. Oh, and then the client lunch meeting. Okay. So for that one, we'll have so gourmet catering there, and for the category is going to be meals. Okay, so this may be not ideal. So I may rethink how I have this structure here. But for the demonstration purposes on how to autofill forms, I can come over to my expense table now, right? And I'm going to be able to, so actually, let me restate that this is good for just like setting the defaults. And so maybe we're saying to the sales team, okay, sales team, for y'all's outreaches this month. Y'all have $500 allotted, and y'all can spend that on gourmet catering, and the category type would be meals. All right. And so if we have that set up like that, then every time we add a new expense, that will be the default value, but they'll still have the ability to change it if it's not associated with the default value. So if I come over here to category ID in the expense table, I'm going to have that as the initial value. And so we can come in here to the project ID now and get the category ID. So that's what I was trying to do earlier, but because we didn't have that field filled in, it wasn't allowing me to do that. So now we've got that situated, and then we can do the same thing here for vendor ID. Okay, and we'll do project ID dot vendor ID. Okay, so these are just the default ones. They're not necessarily the ones that the sales team would select every time. I think that the any select expression that we used here is a great way to kind of define that. And so we could have like this same concept for the vendor table and the category table when you're clicking on any type of project. And so we'll go ahead and click add a new project add a new expense. And when we do that, we get the project A, and then we already have it auto-filled to select meals. And then we can do the description is another client outreach meal. Okay. And then we can go to the next form, and then there we go. It's got our vendor selected. We paid with credit card, and we spent $50 for that meal. And then if we wanted to, we could add a receipt there. But for the sake of time, we won't do that right now. And then it saves that and adds it to our expense tracker. And so now we can see we spent $115 in total expenses, and we have the remaining spend of $385. Okay, so I don't want to view all of this in different columns. I told y'all, if y'all stuck around, I have the HTML virtual column that I want to show you guys. So let me show y'all how to set that up real quick. It shouldn't take too long. There might be a bit of commentary on how to set this up, but this is HTML in AppSheet. So that way you don't have to see all three columns in like the vertical view, but you can just see it in one view right there. So let's call this just the budget overview. All right. And I have the expression over here because it's quite a large one. But as you'll see, I'll break it down to what goes inside of this. All right. So again, this is HTML inside of AppSheet. And the way that you organize it is you're going to concatenate a bunch of different fields together. Okay, so what goes in the top is going to be your headers. So what you want displayed, which I want the budget allotment. So I'm just going to label this one budget. And then I want the expense total. So I'm just going to call this one expenses. And then how much I have remaining. Okay. All right. So we have all of those set, and I don't need these other ones. So I'm going to go ahead and, well, before I remove those. Okay. That's good. Okay. Just making sure there wasn't anything I was missing out of those. And so we're going to do the same thing here, but this is where we get the dynamic data. Okay. And you can even do some subtraction there, but we don't need to do that as we've already kind of set that up over here. And so the first column that we need is the allocated budget. Which, am I in the right table? Oh, I'm in the wrong table. This is on the expense table. So let me restart here. And I don't need this one. I'm going to go to the project table for this and add the budget overview. Sorry about that, guys. I didn't click the right view there. Budget overview. Okay. All right, now let's do the HTML and AppSheet demonstration. So paste in that expression there. And so again, we have our budget, our expense, and then what we have remaining. And so the next step is to enter the dynamic data. And so I need the budget allotment there. And so that's going to be this one to this one. And then next, after that, we have our expense. And so this is going to be total expenses. And then the last one, we don't need to do any subtraction because we've already done that, is the amount we have remaining. So this is going to be remaining spend. Okay. And so this is going to give us one view in HTML format on our detail view here. And so I can go ahead and save that. And then it's going to actually be long text. And now you see AppSheet pops up the formatting. I want HTML formatting. So alternatively, if you wanted to give your end user access to HTML formatting or Markdown, you can just select that. And then when they're entering like quick edit fields, they can use either HTML or Markdown in their notes, and it'll reflect that in the formatting. Okay, so we have the option of viewing our data like this, or we can hop over to the project detail and add our new virtual column, budget overview, and view it all from a single row, like so. All right, so there we go. Excuse me. So now we have the budget overview. We can see how much we have budgeted, what our expenses have been, and then how much we have remaining. Okay, so pretty sweet there. That way we don't have to, take up extra space on the detail view, but we have the HTML format right there for us. All right. So hopefully that one was maybe a new idea or something that y'all haven't seen before in AppSheet. If it was, let me know in the chat. I want to see if that was helpful for you guys. Okay, so if you stick around for tomorrow, we'll dive even further into these learnings. And actually, I do have an announcement for tomorrow. I will be out of office, so we'll push tomorrow's session back to Thursday, and I'll also be out of office on Friday. So I will have 2 sessions that we'll save for next week. But again, tomorrow's session will be on Thursday, and then Friday's session will be on Monday of next week. But yeah, hope y'all enjoyed this session here. Let's do a bit of a recap on what we learned. Let me go through some of the different things we did on the AppSheet editor side, and I'll make this a little bit bigger for everyone to see. So if we look at our app here, we started with projects and expenses. And so we can add expenses here. But the preferred method right now is going to be to click on an actual project, and then we can see the budget overview for that project. So the project has a budget of 500, the expenses that we've spent or what we have spent. So this one could be renamed to spent, and then is 115, and then the remaining spend is 385 left for this project. And then you can see the related expenses tracked down here. And we added some autofilling for our form here. So we can autofill the project name, the meal associated, and then the description. And then the expense details, we also added the vendor autofill for like a default value for the given project. and that's set on the project level there. And so maybe that's only for admin, and we would just make that view or those fields show for admin of the app, and then end users don't see that default setting there. Okay, and then we also had the payment method autofill based on the enum or the reference table that has the type. Is it default or other? And then we have the amount and also the ability to add a receipt and added pagination up there at the top. All right, so that's a quick overview of the updates we did to our app today. And then let's do a quick overview for the general NoCode brief today. So today we talked about creating interactive forms with AppSheet. We designed dynamic forms with drop-downs and user-friendly elements. We added validations and behavior rules for efficient data collection. So I guess we didn't get to that one for our optional views. If you watch some of our previous ones, you will see some demonstrations of form validations and behavior rules. So showing and hiding based on the different selections there. So we can also save that for next session as well, which we will be talking about unleashing the power of AppSheet expressions. So if you're wondering more about our AppSheet expressions and how to use expressions more dynamically in your AppSheet apps, be sure to come on Thursday. We will be talking more about that. All right. So again, just for everybody's awareness, I will be out tomorrow. So if you can go ahead and I will meet you guys on Thursday for that one. And then Hamlet says the HTML table on detail view was new to me. Thanks. Awesome. Great. I could help you with that one. Yeah, so if you guys need that script, just go and rewatch the recording and you can get it right there. And then, yeah, maybe I'll post this in the AppSheet community and give you guys access to the code snippet there. That could be helpful for y'all as well. Just let me know and I'll get that information to y'all in any way I can that works best for y'all. Okay, if this was valuable to you, make sure to like and subscribe to our AppSheet Training YouTube channel, and then you can register for the next live stream at appsheettraining.com/livestream, and that's going to be again on Thursday. I'll be out of office tomorrow, so I'll see you guys on Thursday. And then if you can sign up for your free AppSheet Training Tech Talk, that would be awesome. We'd love to meet you, talk to you about what you're working on and what services might be helpful for you and your business to help you do more of the things that you love and less of the things that you don't, and really get the most out of the no-code technologies that your company is using. All right. Well, with that is a wrap for today's session. Thank you all for joining. Again, if you can share this with your friends, your colleagues, and your team, that would be super appreciative, as it will help our audience grow and help reach more people that are interested in utilizing no-code technologies for their business workflows. Again, I'm Austin from QREW Technologies. Thank you all for joining in today, and I will see you on the next